This is 911. Do you have an emergency?
Today on Rescue 911. At a local convenience store, a truck out of control becomes a mother's worst nightmare.
The truck was on top of her and she couldn't move.
We don't have time for a jack.
Plus,
you could tell that this young man was important to a lot of people.
a neighborhood boy collapses
I was crying so hard I could barely see.
on Rescue 911.
On August 8th, 1994, in Hammond, Indiana, Debbie Crozier was spending the afternoon with her fiancé's father, Wayne Edmonds, and her 2 young children. But as they discovered, it's risky to take for granted that the people who are in our lives today will be there tomorrow.
If you can't, I will, but, you know...
Well, I hope, because I just hate waiting, and then I don't know if he's going to get the kids to bed or not.
Do one shot, I'll be there. Fine.
All right, guys.
Heather and Matthew, said they were thirsty and stuff, so I went in there and got him each a pop and bought, I bought him some candy. The note on the window said they were hiring.
Can you watch them for a second?
Matthew, he's my fishing buddy. And Heather, she gets to be honoring one once in a while. But she's a good kid.
No, I already tasted once.
These kids mean a lot to us.
Cindy Barnes was driving a friend to the store.
Scotty had said to me, look out, there's 2 kids playing there, stay a little bit farther back.
See, that's good. That's why you can't play that close.
She was eating those orange sherbet push-ups, and she had it all over her face. And I thought she was really cute.
David Bell happened to be on his way to run an errand at the same mini-mall.
This truck was in front of me and was moving along, stopping, going, stopping. I remember saying to myself, you're not driving an 18-wheeler. Come on, just so easy, simple, left turn, forward, park, and stop, and. As she turned and cleared from me, I just zoomed right past her.
I was watching the truck, and then all of a sudden she just lunged forward. I knew that the little girl said I didn't want to look. I really didn't want to look.
I didn't know what was going on, but I panicked right away because I said, my God, my kids are outside.
My baby! Oh, my God!
I couldn't believe it. The truck was on top of her and she couldn't move.
And I was screaming, I said, oh my God. I got angry, I got mad, upset because I said, how could this happen?
What the hell you do? What's going on?
My fiance's father wouldn't let me look at Heather.
The way I saw that truck go over her, I didn't think there was going to be too much left of her.
And I'm fighting him, letting me go. I said, please, I want to see her, I want to see her.
When we continue.
I told this man that we don't have time for a jack. We've got to get this truck off this child now. And he said, what do we do? And I said, let's pick it up. Let's lift the truck.
911 emergency. I need an ambulance and something to Grand Food Mart, 650 Calumet Avenue.
What's the problem?
A truck ran through the window and there's a little kid under the truck.
There's a little kid under the truck?
Right.
Is the truck on top of the child?
The truck is through the window and there's a child underneath the truck. That's all I know.
I'm screaming for a jack, and I saw the little girl turning purple. I wanted to cry. I just, oh man, it gets me every time, like now.
Call for ambulance 3, engine 4.
Hammond dispatcher Jackie Wheeler sent rescue units to the scene as she continued to talk to store manager Karen Guzman.
How old is the child?
I don't know.
It's like, I can't believe this is happening in front of my face. You just got scared way down inside. I could hear in the background the mother screaming. And that's one of the most terrible things you can hear is a parent, a mother, father screaming for their child.
Mechanic Adron Mallard heard the crash from across the street.
When I looked down at the child was blue in color. And I told this man, we don't have time for a jack. We've got to get this truck off this child now. And he said, what do we do? And I said, let's pick it up. Let's lift the truck.
I looked at him dead in the eyes. I said, let's do it. Okay, let's do it. Get that Jeep out the way. I took that anger, the emotions that was all going within me. I just took it out on that truck. Get the baby out! Get her out!
Store clerk Pat Stepp heard their screams for help.
Nobody wanted to go under the truck. Everybody, I think, was in shock. Thought Heather had died. And I couldn't see that truck going back down on top of her again.
Get the baby out! Come on! Can't hold it up too much! Hurry up!
And then I seen her move. I couldn't believe it. She was alive.
Get the baby! Oh, come on, somebody, please!
This man told me at one point, I'm losing my grip. I'm losing my grip.
Get the baby out!
And I said, we cannot let it back down.
But we embraced each other. We was like, oh man, thank God. It's a good job, you know.
When I was carrying her out, she sat up and hugged me. Best hug I ever had in my life.
I'm holding Heather in my arms, just like you would a little baby. It's really hard for me. Her face was all swollen. She had pieces of glass all over her. She was real dirty.
You need to lay her down. You need to lay her down, yeah. Lay her down over here.
I said, I'm trained in first aid. Please put her down on the ground. I said, if she's got a spine or neck injury, you could do more damage by cradling her. I've never seen anything like it before in my life, and I hope to never see it again.
7-year-old Heather Johnson and her 5-year-old brother Matthew were taken to St. Margaret Mercy Health Care Centers.
I wanted to see my sister because I want to see if she was okay.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Let's roll him and roll her.
How are you doing? Good. How are you? Her eyes were purple. I was scared. I don't know if she was scared.
While Matthew suffered a fractured collarbone in the accident, amazingly, Heather only suffered 3 fractured ribs and a broken ankle.
I hoped I wouldn't die. If the truck was on like about 5 more minutes, I would have passed away. It's hurt. It's choking me a little bit.
In the 6 weeks that have passed, both children have completely recovered from the accident.
I did fear for her life.
Isn't that better?
There's no way that I think that this gentleman and myself could ever have done something like this if it wasn't for this little girl's life being feared. I don't know that it could be done again if it were the same situation.
I want to thank him and give him a hug. Thank you very much. And just tell him I thank him very much for saving my child's life.
The family and David Bell have become close.
David just happened to be in the right place at the right time. God gave him the strength to lift up that truck and get my daughter out. Because if it wasn't for him, it's the honest truth, I would have lost her.
Heather, who I call my girl, said about the driver of the pickup truck. I know she didn't mean to hit me, you know, on purpose. And it really touched me. I said, this girl gonna grow up to be someone. So like God gave her a second chance.
David Bell was a hero. We're like very close friends, but he's part of my family now.
I love David Bell with all my heart, and he will always be welcome in my family.
Next.
One of the police officers came up to me and said, your son was huffing butane. And I couldn't believe that Brad would choose to do something like this.
Get my mom!
On April 11th, 1992, in a suburb of Tulsa, Oklahoma, 15-year-old Brad Kay had planned to spend the afternoon with his usual group of close friends who lived in the neighborhood. He and his father, Tom, got along well, but Tom had no idea of the tragic risks his only son was taking.
Brad was all-American boy. He was adventuresome, intelligent, inquisitive. He was sometimes mischievous. He'd walk into a room, and in a matter of minutes, he'd have the whole place in uproar.
I remember him riding up the street like he always did.
What's going on?
Not much. He was my best friend. He was like my little brother.
Rodney Price, whom Brad had known since he was 5, lived less than a block away.
When we were all bored, he would usually find something to do, or he'd say something, a joke or something. He was hilarious. He'd make everybody laugh.
Another close friend, Aaron Albrecht, was also over at Rodney's that day.
We were talking. Someone had mentioned butane, so we decided to go up to the store. Me, Brad, and another friend.
See you later.
Huffing. It was kind of like a fad. Everybody at school was doing it. Brad, he loved it because he made him feel like he was invincible or different or something. I mean, and I felt the same thing. I liked it too.
We drove around for about an hour or an hour and a half, and we kept on inhaling butane. Brad did about a whole can, but he was being normal as far as I could tell. You know, I didn't see anything different besides him laughing all the time. We came back here. Brad was walking in front of me. Come on, Brad. I said, come on, get up.
Brad.
He wouldn't get up. I didn't know
Brad.
what was going on.
Rodney!
My heart was racing. I was
Rodney!
freaking out.
Oh, God.
Brad!
The way he was on the ground looked like, I mean, there was something really wrong. He wasn't breathing.
Come on, Brad.
Get my mom!
Get up, please.
I was scared to death.
Rhonda Brown, a registered nurse, was at home 2 doors up the street.
And I heard the kids screaming. And I thought, great, somebody's fighting. And so I looked up over the fence, and I could see Brad laying on the ground. Brad was my favorite out of the whole neighborhood, and everybody knew it. So to see this kid lying on the ground, it was very hard.
Brad!
He was making a sound where you could tell no air was moving in his lungs. A car pulled up at that point, and a man came out of the car, and he said, I know CPR. He checked for a pulse. He said he doesn't have a pulse.
1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and breathe.
One of the kids had run to get Brad's father, Tom Kay.
I didn't know whether he had an accident, somebody had shot him. I couldn't understand why my son was on the ground not breathing. I couldn't comprehend what was going on.
3 and 4 and... Come on, Brad.
He only responded to me one time, and he looked straight at me, and he went and took a full breath.
Come on, that's
But
it.
that was the only breath he took that was effective. And that's where it dawned on me, you know, we may lose this kid.
Rescue units with the Broken Arrow Fire Department arrived within 5 minutes, including EMT Paul Thompson.
The way the neighborhood was responding, you could tell that this young man was important to a lot of people.
What we got?
It was obvious that he was starving for oxygen. And then when I realized that Brad was in cardiac arrest, I put my pads on the chest of the patient. I hooked up my defibrillator.
Everybody stand back. Shock's being advised. Count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Shock is delivered. Okay, we're checking for pulse.
The first shock, it had no effect on the patient at all. And so I shocked him again. And then after the second shock, I checked for pulse. I did have a pulse.
Keep breathing him, Jeff. Doing good. 1, 2, 3. Keep that airway.
We're all taught if you get to somebody quickly, you can save their life. Brad no more than hit the ground than somebody was by his side. So I really had a lot of hope that things would turn out.
Brad Kay was taken to St. Francis Hospital, where he was examined by pediatric intensive care specialist Dr. Michael Stoyko.
You on an epi drip?
He unfortunately was minimally responsive. By filling the lungs with butane, the lungs no longer had oxygen, and the oxygen levels in his blood dropped rapidly.
The bed's clear.
But you could look at his face, and you could see a beautiful, vital young man there who did something intentionally, who was now laying there helpless. Everybody was just very, very depressed, knowing that this could have been prevented.
All Tom and Jan Kay could do was wait for word of their son's condition.
One of the police officers came up to me and said, "Your son was huffing butane." And I said, "What's that?" He said, "Well, that's where they inhale the butane out of the can." And I thought, oh, Lord. I couldn't believe that Brad would choose to do something like this.
You just keep hoping that this is not really happening, and it didn't seem real. It seemed like this was happening to someone else.
He's not opening his eyes, he's not moving around, and that's very worrisome that his brain may be very seriously injured. The initial prognosis that I told the parents was that he was very unlikely to survive. That would make sense.
At that point, our hearts just sunk, absolutely sunk.
You'll see the little pad on his chest here, what that's doing now.
There was just no change in Brad at all. From the first time that I saw him to the last time that I saw him.
So it's been a rough road here for the last hour.
You know, miracles happen every day, and I thought, why can't one happen for us?
Mr. and Mrs. K.
At 5:30, they came in and they said
Brad's blood pressure.
Brad was failing.
We need to go in and be with
If you want to say something to your son, now's the time. So we went in there and spent the last moments with him. And we held his hand as he slipped away. There was nothing we could do.
At 6:01 a.m., less than 11 hours after he collapsed from inhaling butane, 15-year-old Brad Kay was pronounced dead.
The lesson I would love to have people learn is that, contrary to what their peers may be telling them, these types of drugs are very dangerous. You are essentially playing Russian roulette. The tragedy here is one of ignorance. There are probably thousands of children out there who are inhaling these various chemicals, and probably as we speak, one of them is dying.
I still have a picture in my wallet of him, just to remind me. I don't want to forget about him. If Brad never died, I'd probably still be huffing right now. But that right there is something that'll just kill you. I mean, even though it didn't, I'm not dead. I mean, it seems like some part of me's dead because Brad died. It seems like part of me's missing.
I always knew teenagers weren't invincible, even though they think they are. It's sad that it took him for everybody to learn a lesson. I miss him. If I could do anything to bring him back, I would.
It'll be a very long time for both Jan and I to recover totally, and we probably never will. We'll always hold a very, very special part of Brad in our hearts. See a boy Brad's age and you wonder, I wonder what Brad would have grown up to be. He had a lot of opportunity. And Brad's not going to be able to fulfill those opportunities at this point because he made a terrible, terrible mistake.
Hundreds of deaths have been attributed to huffing toxic inhalants, such as butane, spray paint, aerosols, glues, solvents, and sealants, to try to get high. Most of the people who died were less than 20 years old, and the number of deaths is rising. This series is dedicated to all the men, women, and children who aid and comfort us in times of trouble. I'm William Shatner. Join us again next week for more true stories on Rescue 911.
Mr. Shapiro, step out of the car, please.